concrete walls. There's a place for us where we could go, where we could be alone. Between city lights, we don't have to hide. I wanna go, do you wanna follow? There's something in the air, I can't explain it, but it's there. Ain't nobody gonna find us in our secret love affair. I don't wanna have to hide no more, it shouldn't be unfair. I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow? Baby, do you wanna follow? Come with me, do you wanna follow? Baby, can't you see that? I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow? Baby, do you wanna follow? Come with me, do you wanna follow? Baby, can't you see that? I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow? I can't understand why we can't hold hands, but they don't know what we have is real love. Aren't you sick and tired of having to hide? I know a place, do you wanna follow? There's something in the air, I can't explain it, but it's there. Ain't nobody gonna find us in our secret love affair. I don't wanna have to hide no more, it shouldn't be unfair. I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow? Baby, do you wanna follow? Come with me, do you wanna follow? Baby, can't you see that? I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow? Do you wanna follow? Baby, do you wanna follow? Come with me, do you wanna follow? Baby, can't you see that? I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow?
What's up, you guys? Welcome to the live stream. It's Monday night. We're watching some racing footage here. Actually, I think I've finished my laps and I'm just coming in footage here. So let's just switch to a different camera. Hello. Much better. How do you like my shirt? Remember this? That's me, actually. No. FPV Flight Club. It is Monday, Underdog FPV. Glad you're here, my friend. 661 FPV. Maya on high. Lexi Jansen says, more throttle does not mean faster. You are right about that. However, if you don't get to high, if you eventually you have to raise the throttle to go faster, don't you? Eventually, you hit a point where you need to be going faster. Got an old-fashioned here. Let me ask you this. Is it heretical to put maraschino cherry juice in an old-fashioned? I don't think so. I say no. I'm making the drink I want to make. Okay, here we go. 3, 2, 1. Welcome to the stream. Skadoosh, you're 100% right. If you push the throttle and you blow out the turn, I mean, who am I to talk about racing? But I mean, if you push the throttle and you blow out turns, your times are going to be worse. But at the same time, there's a thing that happens, to me at least. It's the time when I need to increase my up tilt. It's the time when, no, every lap isn't perfect, but you just keep hitting 25, 25, 25 seconds, right? And you're not getting any faster. And it's like at some point you're going to need to be higher in the throttle in order to go faster. See what I'm saying? Rob Axelson says that makes it a Manhattan. Is that true? Is an old fashioned with maraschino cherry juice a Manhattan? All this time I've been making Manhattans and I didn't know. Let's look this up. A Manhattan. Oh, God, just give me a recipe. Bourbon, sweet vermouth, no vermouth in this. Angostura bitters, yes. Orange bitters, no. And a brandied cherry. It's close, but there's no vermouth in this. And there's no orange bitters. I think you're in the right direction though. So, yeah, because I find that this happens more on the simulator to me than in real life. In real life, I'm a little more timid. I find that, like, if I listen to the motors and I feel where the throttle position is, then I've reached this point where I'm comfortable where I'm at. I can mostly not crash. And the problem is that in order to get faster, you have to go faster. And that means you're going to feel uncomfortable until you start to, dial that in. And so one of the things I'll do is I will try to force myself to be at a higher throttle position and then still get clean lines, right? This is just for practice. Obviously, when you're actually at a race, sometimes it pays to be conservative. Again, I'm hardly an authority on racing, but yeah, I find that I get comfortable and then I don't want to push. And then I'm like, I need to get the thing. When you're doing freestyle, you can just kind of sit there and baby yourself. But when you're racing, the timer says 25 seconds, 24, 5, 25, 25, 1. And you're like, I need to go faster. And you have to find a way to do that. One thing you can do is more up tilt. That's one of the things I did to try to get faster on these. Because I would find that as I entered that straightaway, I would dip down and I'd be looking at the ground. And then I'd have to back up to see where I was going. And I was like, oh, I need more up tilt. I would hit the throttle and the quad would go whoosh up in the air. That's a sure sign that I need more up tilt. The flip side is that if you have too much up tilt, then you can't do the technical sections. So I'm trying to figure it out. I'm very, very happy with that quad, though. That's the 533 switchback. Very, very happy with it. It's a great quad. I mean, that's as good as I've ever flown a racing quad. And I didn't get better. That quad is just that good. All right. Yeah. In order to go faster, you have to... More throttle doesn't mean you go faster. Here's what I'll say. More throttle doesn't mean you go faster if you blow out your lines. But if you look at the guys who are going fast, chances are they're at a higher throttle than you, and they're not blowing out their lines. So there's only so much time. Once you get your lines pretty good, there's only so much time you're going to make up by making them better, right? If you're not just making huge mistakes, if your lines are reasonably solid, then you have to be at a higher throttle position in order to go faster. That's what I would say. Anyway. Old-fashioned. What are we going to talk about tonight? I'm going to take your questions. That's one thing we're going to talk about. Here we go. This is my main screen right here. Watching everything here. Wait, no, we need viewer activity here. There we go. Watching all you guys ask your questions. What quad is JB racing? Ron Grant. The 533 switchback. I got a build tutorial up on my channel. It is 533 switchback. Where is it? Oh, wow, that was a while ago. Oh, man, so much has happened. Here we go. I got a build tutorial up on my channel. You can check that out. 533 switchback. My perfect racing drone build 2021. Yeah. So I'll be answering your questions. And I'll also be paying attention over here to these beautiful people in the Discord. Hello, Discord. Say hello to the stream, Discord. You want to be on my Discord server, you can join my Patreon. Link in the video description. Max Whalen's got a question there. I have your Xylo build. I was thinking of switching to the Ethics PBJ props. I think that's a good idea. I don't think it's a bad idea. The only thing I would say, Max Whalen, is that the motors on the Xylo build are small. They're 2206, and they are not super powerful motors. So if you pair them with a low pitch prop, it will help make the most of the torque that they have. If you pair those motors with a high pitch prop, then they won't have enough torque to be really responsive. At the same time, they're not ultra high kV and they're not ultra large motors, so you're not going to get a ton of thrust out of them. But if you pair them with a lighter prop, but you're not going to get a ton of thrust out of them either way. So Drone Pilot in the Discord says, I posted to the wrong spot. Here you go, Joshua Bardwell. Someone just flew 8.1 miles out with a drone. Very impressive. Here, we'll show that. DJI long range, 8 miles out, 16-mile round trip. Is this FPV? What's the actual quad? Oh, it doesn't look like a DJI quad. Yeah, he's got the goggles. He just got aftermarket antennas. That doesn't surprise me. Wesley Vardy just emailed me like 5 minutes before the live stream. You may know that I sent Wesley Vardy a set of DJI goggles. He does range testing and with a wing. And I sent him a set of DJI goggles so he could test the DJI system. And he just sent me the first result. Now he hasn't posted about it, so I wonder if I should reveal what his result was. I don't know. What do you think? What do you think, chat? Let's see what the chat thinks. One more thing before we go on. If you want to make sure that I get your question, because the questions are going to go by fast and furious, if you want to make sure I get to your message, hit the $sign down here and leave a super chat. And that nobody's left a super chat yet. You could still be the first super chat of the stream. You just hit that $sign, and I will. Yeah. Oh, they're saying yes. They're saying yes, I should. Oh well, I mean, I guess. I hope he won't be too mad, but I hope he won't be mad about it if I spoil it. But I did send him the goggles, so I feel like I have some prerogative to spill the results a tiny bit. He went 13.4 kilometers on 1200 milliwatts. Notice his delay in his bit rate, by the way, down at the bottom. Notice the delay in the bit rate. 470 milliseconds delay, almost a half a second of delay, RSSI signal of 1, and bit rate 0.5 megabits per second. Here's the kicker, though. This was on the stock antennas. Oh, he's in the Discord. I'm not like, oh, maybe I'm going to get away with like spoiling his result. On stock antennas. Oh, 13.4 kilometers is 8.3 miles. That's the max anyone can do. So here's the thing. We know there's a hard limit to DJI FPV, to the air unit in the Vista. We know there's a hard limit that's baked into the protocol. It's not GPS related. It's not like a geofence because the air unit doesn't have GPS in it. It has to have something to do with the protocol and the timing. We know there's a hard limit. I guess the thing is, what's interesting about this is that it seems like Wesley was able to hit that hard limit of 13.4 kilometers or 8.3 miles on the stock antennas, the stock Omnis. Now, was it flyable? No. Look at the image. Look at the image. That's the image that he had. Where's the sky? I don't know. Nevertheless. Yeah, that milliseconds of delay, says Drone Pilot. That milliseconds of delay is the hard limit. Yeah, once that delay, I theorize that because it's a two-way protocol, that once that delay gets past a certain threshold, the packets can't get acknowledged. So, No, I would not call this a flyable image. I'll be very interesting. I assume Wesley is going to post his results the same as he normally does, where he'll have like the analog image in the upper left and then the DJI image, and you can sort of decide for yourself at what point you would consider it unflyable. But that's shocking. That's shocking. He hit the max on the stock antennas. Well, should you upgrade the antennas? Yeah, obviously, that's not a flyable image. Still pretty freaking interesting. Looking forward to more of his results. I asked, obviously he's running the results. He's just, I mean, I sent him the goggles and I was like, go crazy. But we discussed some tests he might like to do, including testing top versus bottom versus diagonal for the patch antenna versus the Omnis, which is better, and so forth. DJI versus Sharkbite, because of course he's got some Sharkbite stuff too. So, pretty freaking interesting stuff. Thank you very much, Wesley, for doing that. Let's see. What would analog look like 8 miles out? Well, I mean, what would analog look like 8 miles out? This is his analog feed right here. Now, to be fair, I'm pretty sure he's running 1.3 gigahertz. I'm assuming that's the case. But I mean, Wesley, I'm guessing that he could show you an example of 5 gigahertz range testing. So, Wesley says, this is moments before the hard limit. Interesting. Check this out. He says this is moments before the hard limit. Oh, I apologize, guys. That Wesley says that's onboard DVR. That's not his signal. That's onboard DVR. I assumed he's using 1.3 gig. He says this is moments before. It looks like it degraded really quickly. 36 milliseconds, 1.5 megabits per second. And he's 8 kilometers out or something. Pretty freaking good. Pretty freaking good. It's pretty ridiculous. On stock antennas, it went, let's just say 8-ish kilometers out with 36 milliseconds of delay. At that, I mean, the delay is obviously really inconsistent here. I'm sure that it's up and down, but looking forward to his result. Thank you very much, Wesley, for doing this amazing work. Very cool stuff, dude. All right, let's move on. Yeah, he has GPS on board, T. Simon. He returns to home after he fail saves. Should put a link to his stupid channel. The guy we're talking about is Wesley Vardy, and here's his channel. And he does a whole bunch of range testing. You absolutely should check him out. You absolutely should check him out. 100% worth it. Really cool stuff. Really cool stuff he's doing. Digital and analog on the same quad at once. Yeah, 661 FPV. I'll be curious to see how he mitigated the potential for interference between analog and digital. If he had a 5 gigahertz analog VTX, I would fully expect it to interfere with the results. Again, I'm assuming he's using 1.3 gig. I don't know that for a fact. But since he's doing long range stuff, am I not subbed? Oh my God. Oh my goodness gracious, look at that. I'm not subbed? There we go. Boom. I'm not hitting the bell though. I'm sorry. I'm not hitting the bell. I don't hit the bell. Let's see. What's the control link? Rayat 9. I'm pretty sure it's Express LRS. Wesley is a big proponent of Express LRS, so I would guess that that's what he's got on his wing. Carbon Cage FPV wants to know, why is my ESC beeper not working? I mean, it's a D-Shot. Are you using D-Shot? ESC beeper doesn't work without D-Shot, right? Surely you're using D-Shot, though. You guys should hit the bell, by the way. On my channel, you should subscribe and hit the bell. I don't hit the bell because I got enough freaking notifications on my phone. You know what I mean? You guys should hit the bell, though. Leo Ponce asks, what are the best budget 6S motors you would recommend? Emax Eco. There are, there's various good budget motors out there. The Emax Eco are shockingly good for price. This one's out of stock. It's the Eco 2. Sorry. It's the Eco 2 are the ones I want. These are them. Oh my God, what a gorgeous motor. $14 freaking. It's a solid motor for $14. It is like, frankly, like you can look at this motor. It doesn't have a unibell. It sure doesn't look like it has a unibell to me, right? There are some things you could point to and go, yeah, you could do better. But gosh, for $14, it's a really good motor, and you really have to ask yourself why you want to spend more. I mean, you could argue that there's some $22 motors that are better. But Eco 2 is really good for $14. I don't know if you could make an argument that you should spend less. How about that? Like there used to be the DYS Samguk motor used to be like $8, and I mean you could fly on them, and people were like, I have Samguk motors, they're amazing. It's like, well, they're not. I mean, I'm glad they're working for you, but at that $8 price point, they're not. There's a lot of corners being cut. That's just a fact. I feel like at the $14-ish price point, there aren't too many corners being cut. Like you might end up with a steel shaft instead of a titanium shaft. Oh, okay. That's okay, though. You don't feel too bad about that. I don't know KO Motors, J-Rod's World. Not sure. I don't know that. T-Motor Velox, solid. They're solid. How much are they? Yeah, but Velox are $17. Here's the Velox V2 for $14. Probably solid. I mean, they're probably solid. I mean, T-Motor makes a good motor. Let's see. Yeah. Colors. What about tell me about the motors. You haven't told me, like what kind of bearing do they have? What aluminum alloy is the shaft? No, none of that. See. Let's get some super chats out of the way. We've got some super chats coming in. First, let me get this question from Mad Hero FPV. Why does variable PWM frequency in BLHeli make my motors really hot? I don't know, but it does that for some people. I would just go to 24K PWM frequency and leave it alone. I don't know why some motors get hot when you use variable PWM, but they do. All right, super chats. Ori Foxer, thank you for $2 super chat. Moongoat versus Pirat Sloop for freestyle. I have the Apex. Let's look at the Pirat Sloop. I don't know this frame super well. Pirat Sloop. Huh. What's this little knock here for? What's that doing? What's the point of that thing? There's got to be a reason for it. I wonder what it is. Let's see if we can get a good look at this. It's narrowish on top. The overall dimensions vaguely remind me of the Source 1 V4. It's got battery straps here. It's got notches for the battery strap. But the battery's probably going to be wider than that top deck. So I'm curious how that's going to work. But yeah, you don't have to use them. It feels like this notch here feels like an invitation for the motor to break off right here. But I guess the motor base itself is going to help prevent that. It seems like there's not a lot of Seems like there's not a lot of material. I'm really suspicious of that. Hang on, open a new tab. I'm really suspicious of this design right here. It seems like these cuts here are awful thin. Awful thin. Maybe I'm overreacting, but they seem awful thin. That's really jumping out to me as something that I would be curious if I was overreacting or if I'm right, that's a potential break point. I like the arm thickness. The arm thickness looks pretty good, especially here where the screw goes through the arm. That's going to be a weak spot. Anytime you have a screw hole through an arm, it's going to be a weak spot. That's one of the things I like about the QAVS, but not a deal breaker. There's plenty of material there. Looks like, does it have both 36 and 20 millimeter mounting? Not that I care. I use 30 millimeter, but not 36 millimeter, 30 millimeter. I'm not sure if it has 20 millimeter mounting. Looking at the back of the frame, also the back of the frame tapers down. It doesn't look like there's room in the back for a 20 millimeter mount, which to me jumps out. Yeah. Do you see that? How are you going to, I mean, 20 millimeter mounting in the rear is pretty standard these days. So I'm disappointed that it doesn't seem to have that. It doesn't use a split deck design. There's an argument that Chris Rosser makes an argument that the split deck design of the Apex is superior in terms of resonance. It's using a single plate. $100. I wouldn't pay $100 for this frame. That's just my, no disrespect. Every time I say something about a product, then I get an email from the manufacturer of the product telling me why I was wrong and why I've hurt their feelings. But I think this doesn't compare well to other $100 frames on the market. Let me see if I can find the Moon Goat here. Crunked is here. I'm glad you're here, Crunked. So, how thick are the arms on the Pirat? You can mount the Cadex to this frame. Yeah, but it doesn't have 20 millimeter mounting. I don't think it does. Feature, 30 by 30 stack. Mini camera size. No, that's it. That's the final straw. I know that the Apex is sized for a mini cam because that's what Mr. Steele uses. No one else is going to get away with being sized for a mini cam. Why would you do this? What were you thinking? Don't do that. It's a bad idea. 27 millimeter height for your stack is I think excessive. It's roomy, but it's more than you need. 5 millimeter arms, good. 2.5 millimeter bottom and top plate, good. There's too much about this one, that the Pirat sloop. There's too much about it that I kind of don't, doesn't rub me the right way. And for $100, I think it's asking a lot. Moon Goat, also $100. I mean, there's things I don't like about the Moon Goat. Although I bought a couple Moon Goats at Rampage because I broke my frames and I needed a spare, so I bought some Moon Goats. Cricket, where's my kickback? Moon Goat has a lot going for it, and if Cricket uses it and doesn't just bash the shit out of it, then it's got to be something. Anyway. Dane Martin's here. He's the guy who flew 8 miles on the DJI in a totally legal manner. Isn't the QAVS sized for minicams? Hush your mouth. No, it's micros. It's micros. Come on. Minicams were this weird. Minicams are the Sony mini disc of cameras. We had full-size cams, and then there was a very, very brief period where we had mini cams, and then we just all went to micro cams. I remember the moment when I realized that a micro-sized FPV cam had the same sensor and the same lens as a full-size cam. And then I was like, why is anybody using minis? Andrew Power, thank you, Ori Foxer. I feel like you got your $2 out of your super chat. That was a good discussion. Andrew Power, thanks for a $5 super chat. I guess I'll start the super chats. Insert generic question here, except you were the second one. So thank you for $5 very much. Brian Chelsea, thank you for a $5 super chat. Do you have a good video for Kiss AIO? I'm stuck with defuse. I don't. Thank you for $5. I don't have a good video for Kiss AIO. I've only flashed Kiss using the Kiss configurator. I don't think I've ever used defuse. I mean, I have used defuse in my life. I don't have a ton of Kiss content, though. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to help you. I'm not the guy to ask about that, I'm afraid. Free Lojo, thank you for a $10 super chat. I got a ghost question, Joshua. Not trying to diagnose, just looking for direction. That's a great way to put it. Whenever I don't know the answer to a question, there are times when people ask me a question and I'm just like, I got no freaking idea, dude. And then what I try to do is at least point them in a helpful way, which now I feel bad because Brian Chaussee, I didn't really help point you in a helpful way. I just said, no, I don't know. I don't have a video for Kiss AIO, though. I'm not even sure where I would point you. Crunkedquads.com, KRUNKED. Crunkedquads.com. Crunk does Kiss stuff. Crunk, can you help Brian Chaussee? Here, boom, there's his website. Contact Crunked. He does a lot of Kiss stuff. Maybe he can help you out. He's a good dude. Okay, not trying to diagnose, just looking for direction. I have issues getting the Atto receiver to communicate with a Mamba F722 running the recommended firmwares. Freelojo, if you're having trouble getting Ghost to talk to the flight controller, the first thing to do is to bind it, rebind it, and there's an option in the Ghost module, bind versus bind and set up. In bind and set up, you can choose the protocol it uses. Typically you would use SRXL2, and then one thing with SRXL2 is you have to connect to a UART TX pad, not an RX. And then you have to go into the CLI and type set serial RX _ half duplex equals on. That's how I always set up Ghost, and it always works. So, Aerospace Inc. 53, thank you for a $10 super chat. Any news about the next private flow state screening? How do I get an invite? Good question. We are working right now. We're working right now. Hold on, I'm going to show you. Where's this? Yeah. So I am talking to a person. Let's see here. I'm talking to a person about renting a theater to show the flow state film. It's looking like, don't take this date as set in stone. I'll make an announcement when the date is final. But it's looking like they have seating for, is it 140? Maybe 160. 140. Seating for 140 people. And what I plan to do once we have the details locked in is make an announcement on my channel that if you want to come, you fill out, it'll be like a giveaway. We're just going to pick people randomly and we're going to fill the seats. And then, we'll do the showing. A Power missed the first super chat by 3 seconds. Hey man, if you want to be first, you can be first. Hey, yours was up $5. His was only $2. So I hope to do the showing in June. It may be on like a Wednesday night. You saw there, it's about $1,200 to $1,400 to rent. It's about basically $10 a seat to rent that theater. 140 seats, so $1,400, and that's we're not going to be charging admission because number one, that's we're not making this film to make money off the FPV community, but also we're going to we can't sell tickets, and because then it'll be a public showing, and then the festivals won't want it. It'll already have premiered. So yeah, Eric, what I hope we'll do is we will let you know that you've been accepted, and then you'll be able to make travel arrangements. The one thing that might change is we might move it from a Saturday to like a Wednesday, which if you're coming from out of town could be tricky. But like a Saturday night, it costs like $1,400 to rent the theater, and a Wednesday night, it might cost only like $600, which is a pretty big freaking difference. So we'll have to see. But yeah, I'm working on that. See Steelhead 1988. Take it easy. Only $2. Why discount the people that are helping you out? See Steelhead, I was just trying to help Andrew Power feel better for not having been first. I was just trying to throw him a bone. So I was like, hey, his was only $2. Yours was $5. Take it easy. Wow. People are so eager to get offended on someone else's behalf. Why would you insult Ori Foxer like that? He gave you $2. Take it easy. Is there a way we can donate money to help support the cost of the showing? Bannister Post. I mean, Bannister Post, like I said, I'm happy to put that money up and to say, look, here, we made this beautiful thing and we want to share it with you. I mean, that money ultimately comes from my patrons, among other things. I mean, there's various ways you can support me. We're not going to be selling tickets to the film. I mean, the simple thing to do would be to say, you know, you just got to spend $15 or $10 and cover costs. But we're not going to do that. I mean, if you feel like you want to defray that, then, or any other way you want to support me, obviously Patreon, affiliate links, etc. You can just what are you talking about, Patio Patterson? I asked for $2. I don't even know what you're talking about. Yeah, you could always just send money to my PayPal if you feel like it, but you're certainly not obligated to. Anyway. Dane Martin, thanks for a $10 super chat. I flew 8 miles one way with a 7-inch Triton, Cadex Vista Crossfire Nano Crossfire TX on 500 milliwatts. Yeah, 8 miles seems to be the limit. Oh, that's you, Dane. Yeah. That's pretty much the same as Wesley hit. So, all right, we're caught up on super chats. Yeah, I think it'll be real fun. I'm looking forward to this showing. I mean, I'm hoping we can get people to come out and make like a deal of it. I don't know how, we could make it as social as possible, but I'm really looking forward to it. Maybe do a Q&A or something afterwards. Get Cricket to come in. Get other people who show up who are in the film to come and be around. Devils wants to know, will be able to get the movie later on? Yeah, well, our goal is to get it on streaming services. Our goal is to have it on Netflix, and that's where the money will come from. Right now, I estimate that I have put I would estimate I put $15,000 into the film. Just one thing, in travel to do the interviews. James did the traveling and did the actual interviewing. The colorist was like $3,000. The sound guy was like $5,000, and that was a discount. So I mean, the goal is, if it never makes money, then FPV community, I love you. I'm glad this film exists, but the goal is to get it onto like a Netflix or an Amazon Prime or something, and then, then make your money back, hopefully. So. I want to say also, James Christensen is his name. He has done so much gosh darn work on this film. If he were to be compensated for the time he put in at a fair market rate, he would probably be owed like 40 grand. I don't know the exact number, but like he's put in just hundreds of hours of editing, he traveled all over the US to do the interviews. And this was in the middle of 2020. So a lot of people weren't traveling at all. And he just sucked it up and he got on a plane because he wanted, if he'd have said, no, I'm not traveling, I would have been like, yeah, we'll put the film on hold. But he didn't even ask. He just said, I'm just going to go. I'm going to New York. I'm going to interview these people. I'm going to Orlando. I'm going to interview these people. He just made it happen. He has put so much freaking work in. So he's a great guy to work with, and I'm really proud to be partnering with him on the film. So, all right. Enough about the film. Why didn't we just use Johnny Lutz? Yeah. A professional colorist and then professional sound. I knew, I just said enough about the film. Now I'm talking about the film some more. I knew that that sound design is one of those things where it's easy for a person who doesn't have a professional ear to be like, yeah, it sounds fine. And I knew that it was mandatory that we send the film out to a professional to have it mastered, because it would just sound amateurish and bad if we didn't. So James found this guy who did the mastering for us on the side. But it was literally like $5,000 for him to master the film. And I'm told that's a discount. So anyway. The coloring is the same, but the thing is, James is a decent colorist. We still sent it out to have it professionally colored, just because I felt like that was similar to mastering. They always say never master your own song. Always hire someone else to master your own song, because you just don't have the ear for it. It's your baby. And I felt like it was important to have a third party do the coloring, even though James's coloring was pretty good. But the mastering is just its own thing. Will it be shown in Australia? Michael Dashevsky, like I said, all that stuff remains to be worked out. Right now, the stage that we're at is we've submitted the film to 6 different film festivals. I think the number is 6. Those film festivals are going to show it, and the goal is to get some laurels, because those film festivals, what James tells me is that these film festivals now are basically where the buyers for like the Netflix and the Amazons of the world go to find films to buy. So by submitting it to the film festival and then hopefully winning a category, whatever that might be, best documentary, whatever, you get some of those laurels and you get noticed by the Netflixes and so forth. And then they say, we want to pick up your film. And then you negotiate. And ideally we would say, yeah, there's no region locking. It's available throughout the world. But all of that will have to be worked out after we get interest from like a Netflix. Alrighty. Whose idea was the film? Remy Tim. I think James and I both had the desire to make a documentary about FPV. I had an original idea that I pitched to him that ended up turning into the film. I pitched him the idea, and he said, yeah, he's already had one documentary on Netflix already. A documentary about this girl who like sailed across the ocean in a boat all by herself. So he was like, yeah, if we make a documentary, I can get it on Netflix. I know how to do that. I was like, oh, really? That's just a thing you can do? I was like, well, how much would it cost to make the film? So then we sat down and talked about, because my original idea for the film was a certain thing. And he was like, well, here's why that wouldn't work as a documentary. We need this and we need that. And we brainstormed for a few months to come up with he wrote the outline, the actual outline. So anyway, Bannister Post, thanks for 13 Canadian dollars. If I could travel to see the film, I would. Well, if you can't make it to Atlanta to see it, I would guess we're going to do at least one other showing somewhere in the world. Maybe out west. I don't know. And then ultimately, like I said, the goal is to get it onto a Netflix or an Amazon Prime so anybody anywhere can watch it. So, Zach King, thanks for a 99-cent, a $1 super chat. Rigid FPV, thanks for a $5 super chat. I flew to the beach today. I landed on dry sand, but then as I was taking the goggles off, a wave soaked my drone with salt water and sand. What can I do? Okay, if your drone ends up in salt water, the first thing you should do is, while it is still underwater, unplug it. I don't know why they say to do it that. They say don't take it out of the water and unplug it. Unplug it underwater. Sounds good to me. Maybe there's a reason I don't get it. After you have unplugged it, you need to rinse it with fresh water as soon as possible, because that salt is going to start, especially if it's powered up, that salt is going to start corroding and causing oxidation and corrosion on the electronics. So rinse it as thoroughly as you can with fresh water and then cross your fingers. Then dry it out before you plug it in again. If it was covered in salt water and then you took it home and now it's the next day, then it may be too late, but it can't hurt at this point. So, like, if you haven't already rinsed it, then you need to rinse it in either fresh water or isopropyl alcohol would be even better. You could rinse it with water and then alcohol, and the alcohol will help dry it out. Then thoroughly dry it. Distilled water is the best. Absolutely. Aerospace Inc. The thing is, it's better, I think, to do, like, I once had a quadcopter. I was with Rotor Riot in Orlando, and I jumped off the boat, and as I was walking up through the surf to the beach, one of my quads fell off my backpack into the surf. I grabbed it and immediately doused it with a fresh water bottle that I had on hand. Now, it wasn't distilled water, but I think rinsing it off as soon as possible is more important than waiting till you have distilled water. So, yeah. EP Chris says, reach into the water and unplug a battery. Isn't electricity plus water plus human bad? I don't understand. EP Chris, the batteries that we typically use, 25 volts, they're not going to shock you. The other thing to keep in mind is that the current wants to flow between the positive and the negative leads. So you'll only get shocked if you get between those leads. If you were in salt water and you were to, like, somehow touch the prongs of a battery, you probably would, like a 9-volt battery can make your tongue, you'll feel a little current flow. You probably would feel something. But just unplugging a battery in the water, unless you short positive and ground together, you're not going to get shocked. Corrosion X. You could spray it down with Corrosion X. Interesting idea. This might be one of those times when WD-40, we were talking about WD-40 on yesterday's live stream. WD-40 might be a good, except the thing is, if you spray your quad down with WD-40, then it's going to be like gunked up with WD-40. So it won't have water on it. It'll just have a bunch of WD-40 on it, and that's not really what you want. Good to see you, Cyclimbo. So there you go. The answer is that you need to rinse it off to get that salt, those minerals off it as soon as possible. Rinse it in fresh or distilled water is better. And then after that, you could use alcohol, or if you just got a ton of alcohol, rinse it in alcohol. And then let it thoroughly dry out before you try again. The other thing to keep in mind is that corrosion can happen over time. So you can have a quad that is in the water, you dry it out for 2 days, and then it flies fine. And then 10 days later, it falls out of the sky with a bad flight controller. And you're like, what happened? The corrosion got to you. So. Francis Bidzogo, thank you for $5 Canadian. Yesterday I went to fly and I noticed a red light on my Caddx Vista and no picture. It's not connecting to my computer either. Ouch. Yikes. I mean, hard to say what exactly happened there. If it won't connect to the computer and there's no picture, then it's like it's the Vista. Like sometimes you'll get no picture, but you'll see the menus and you'll know the camera has a problem. Check the voltage. That's what I would say. Check the voltage. Get your multimeter out, check the voltage. If it was not getting sufficient voltage, that would happen. Yes, salt water is bad news. I mean, I'm not going to say that no one has ever survived a quad falling in salt water. Like I said, I had a quad that fell in salt water. It was in the salt water for like 3 seconds, and I snatched it up and immediately rinsed it off with a water bottle, and it was fine. But if all it happened is it got doused with a wave, if you rinse it off quickly, maybe it would survive. But if you dunk in salt water, it's bad. Fresh water, you could be okay. Salt water's bad. Oh, here's Carbon Cage FPV saying his Mavic worked for a couple days after crashing into a saltwater river. Exactly. It worked for a couple days and then it died. If you're going to fly over saltwater, man, you just... Number one, I mean, put a water bottle on your quad, an empty water bottle that will help it float. At least then you'll get your GoPro back. Your quad may be ruined. A good tip is that in order for it to float, you have to displace as much water as the quad weighs. So if your quad weighs 500 grams, will it float with a 1 liter water bottle? Yeah, because 1 liter is 1,000 grams. So an empty water bottle strapped to the quad, it'll float. But depending on the weight of your quad, you may need a bigger or smaller water bottle to keep it from sinking. Dragon Wing says, I had a Vista with only a red light, but it turned out to be the cable between the Vista and the camera. That's worth trying, but I'm surprised it won't even connect to USB if the camera cable's bad. I've definitely seen cases where the Vista powers up but has no image, but you can still bind it in the LED. I mean, you can still get to the menus. It would be worth changing the camera cable. Dean Linux says rice has saved a shitload of smartphones dropped into the water. Yeah, the tip that the people give is you put it in a bag of rice, and the rice sucks the water out. There was a video I saw from an electronics technician, one of these guys that takes like broken electronics and opens them up and repairs them. And he said that rice is popular, but what professionals do is they use moving air. That moving air will do a better job of drying things out than rice in like a bag. So what he said to do is put it like in front of a fan with the fan blowing across it. And that's a better way to dry something out. It makes sense to me. I mean, moving air is very good at drying things out. A liter of water is a liter of water is 1,000 grams, right? Because that's how the metric system works. Was I way off there? A liter of water, 1 milliliter of water, 1 cubic centimeter, 1 gram. That's how the metric system works, right? Let's just double check that. The chat will let me know. Let's see here. Yes, Eric Toft confirms 1 milliliter of water is 1 gram. Makes it really easy. So if you've got a little water bottle, you know, whatever, 300 milliliters of water or something, whatever a little water bottle is, it won't hold your quad up because your quad is too heavy. Why do Americans measure soda in liters? Can anyone explain that to me? I'm going to do a little Jerry Seinfeld routine. What's the deal with soda? In America, we measure everything with gallons. Sometimes we measure with ounces. How do you measure liquid with ounces? Ounces is a measure of weight, not volume. Okay. Then you got fluid ounces. It's a measure of volume, not weight. Why do they call them ounces? Just to be confusing. And then the last thing they do is they measure soda in liters. Hey, would you go to the store and get me a gallon of milk and a liter of soda? What country are we in? It's not a good Seinfeld impression, trust me. Thank you, Remy Tim, for your generosity. Seth Inman says, I feel bad about my quad weighing 770 grams. I fly 1,300 milliamp hours 6S. Should I change anything? Seth, I feel like a 1,300 6S is a little heavy. You could probably save 20 or 30 grams by going down to an 1,100 or a 1,000, which I think would be well worth doing. I would love to go from 770 down to like 750, 740. But, 770 isn't that bad. Lots of people fly 750, 770 and are happy, depending on your style of flight. And then you got Canada, and they put their milk in bags. Hey, you want a bag of milk? You got a ton of TPU on there? That's adding weight. Beep tube, good point. People go bonkers with the TPU. It adds a lot of weight. Todd Tube, thank you for a $5 super chat. 3 of my Vistas are always in low power mode. Why would this happen? I know the answer, Todd. I think I know the answer. If you have temperature protection on, then the Vista will stay in low power mode until you arm the quad. But if you didn't set up the MSP connection, the TX and RX line, if you didn't set that up correctly, the Vista will never know that you armed the quad. So it will stay in low power mode forever. Here's the workaround. Number 1, get your TX and RX, your MSP connection working correctly. Number 2, turn off temperature protection. If you do one of those 2 things. 907 FPV, any news on your 5-inch frame being released? Yes. It will go live tomorrow. Don't tell Get FPV I told you. And by the way, can I say, hang on. What's this? What's this? Could it be a perfect freestyle build? Quadenstein just said milk bags, and now I feel like we need to mark this stream as for containing adult content. In Canada, they sell milk in bags. That's what we're talking about, YouTube, and nothing else. Nothing else. So, yeah, I'm working on the new updated Ultimate Freestyle build. This is the analog version. This will be going live hopefully this week. Just depends. The frame will be available on Get FPV, I think, tomorrow. Aber the Ham says, the calculation you're providing holds true, assuming the components of the quad will all sync. I'm sure that's true for most things, but TPU and carbon fiber I'm not sure about. Nevertheless, yeah, that rule of thumb holds true and is a good piece of advice. You may have more buoyancy than you actually need. Yeah. I mean, I feel like if you went for 1 liter of buoyancy, that's 1,000 grams, and that's going to work for basically any 5-inch quad. A-Power in the Discord would like to see if there's any way to get in on the FPV Crate box. Sorry, they've all gone out. It's all done, but you can still buy the frame. I did not skimp on the red electrical tape. You know I never do. I'm going to tell you the truth. I started using red electrical tape just because that's the color of electrical tape that I had. It's not like I keep a shitload of electrical tape around. And now I just use it. I mean, that's just the color of electrical tape that I have. Yeah. And now people are all salty about it, so I do it just to piss them off. Why aren't FPV stores selling M2 hardware to mount Vistas? So annoying. Monkey FPV. Dude. M2 screw assortment. Just get yourself one of these, man. Let's see. This one looks good. Oh, no. I don't want this. I don't want M2345. No, sir. No, sir. That one looks pretty good. M2 by 4, 5, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 20. That's pretty good. Socket head. I got an M2 assortment. No, those are M3. Yeah, that's pretty good. That's probably what I would get. So pick yourself up one of these. And then the other thing I would suggest you get is M2 nylock nuts. The other thing I would suggest you get is grab yourself like a bag of 100 M2 nylock nuts. And the reason for that is that the standard nuts will shake loose pretty easily. And now you've spent $20 and you have all the M2 hardware you're ever going to want. But maybe not ever, but pretty much. Ooh, Aerobrat, that's beautiful. Aerobrat shares this photo. That's the JB frame. Got the Nubidrone Flow motors, it looks like. Do not recognize that flight controller. I'm having a little trouble recognizing the flight controller. It looks like a Z's flight controller, I think. I'm going to go with Z's. It's got the LED plugs on the side. Aerobrat, is it Z's? Did I get that right? I think it's Z's. I could be wrong. Yeah, beautiful. Hope it works out real well for you. Oh, it's the Z's. I got it. I'm so proud of myself. A-Power, yeah. A-Power, exactly. You need to get 100 cases. 100 pieces of D's nuts. D's nuts right here. No, D's nuts is what you need to get. 100 pieces of D's nuts. That's it. Jonathan Paul-Lazy asks, what can I do when my motors go crazy when throttling up? Jonathan, you got a video of it? Because going crazy could mean several things. Share I guess you probably can't share the video in the chat, Jonathan, because it'll include a link. Will you be able to put a Vista on your frame? Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. What's the price for a digital FPV setup? Asks Misa Smetana. Batteries, charger, everything. Starting from scratch, I think that you're going to look at, I'm going to say between 800. I'm going to say you're going to start at around $800. So for a DJI quad, you're looking at between, say, $350 and $400. Maybe a little less if you build it yourself. Not much less than that. I mean, I guess you could like take $100. The thing is, if you're going to build a DJI quad, you're probably not going to build like $100 cheapy quad. You're probably going to buy. You're putting DJI on it, so you're probably going to buy more expensive stuff. So I think you're going to spend, say, $300 or $400 on the quad, $100 to $200 on the radio. Now you're at $600. $150 worth of batteries, $750. Charger, $850. And then if you need tools to build it, goggles, whoops. DJI goggles, $550. Oh, never mind. $800 was low. My bad. DJI, if you need to buy DJI goggles, $500. Now we're at the $1,300 price point. $1,300. What have I left out? MISC, $200 or $300 more bucks. Okay, so more like $1,500. More like $1,500. Yeah. Never mind. $800 was way too low because I forgot the goggles. More like $1,500. Yeah. So my normal rule of thumb is to get into FPV from zero with analog, minimum $600. And then if you want to get more premium, you can go more expensive. Minimum $600 though. And that's talking like $100, $150 to get like a Tyro kit, the cheapest quadcopter you can build, that kind of thing. But the thing is, with analog, you can get a cheap set of goggles for $100. There isn't that option if you're doing DJI. Immediately, you're spending $550 more for the goggles. So yeah, for DJI, $1,500. And then that's just the start, because you're going to break the quad. And now, I mean, I think if you're going to be in FPV, you need to be prepared to put, wives, cover your ears. Husbands, cover your ears if you're not in FPV. I think you need to be able to put, let's say, minimum, how much a week? Minimum, just to stay ahead of the game in FPV. Just to keep you in props and broken shit. Tell me in the chat, minimum per week to stay in the game. Or maybe, minimum per week. Props, motors, flight controllers. God forbid you save up to build a new quad. Ori Foxer says $100. $50. Iric Toft says not as much as crack, but definitely more than booze. Bad for Life says $1,000 a week. I think you're messing with me. $6,000 a week. See Yuck 300. Yeah, $50 to $100. I feel like that's about right. That's what I'm seeing some people saying. Yeah, you're gonna, every time you go fly, at the very least, you're gonna spend $15, $20 on props. Probably, unless you fly really conservative. You're going to break a motor. You're going to blow an ESC. So, I mean, I feel really bad because every so often I'll get an email and like, Mr. Bardwell, hi, my name is Tommy. I'm 14 years old. I just bought my first quadcopter, mowed lawns all summer, saved up enough money to buy a quadcopter. I'm just really happy to be an FPV. I'm like, Tommy, you're in trouble, kid. I just convinced my parents that I could give me $300 to buy a quad. I'm like, well, mom and dad are going to be laying some money out because you're going to break things. You're going to need more money. You can't just save up and then buy it and be done. It ain't like a musical instrument. You save up your money. You buy your guitar. You buy your saxophone, whatever. You buy your keyboard. Okay. Now, you mean, like, you gotta buy strings for your guitar and picks. But for the most part, you spend that money, you're done. Now you gotta go. But FPV's not like that. It's like sometimes it's not, little Tommy from the Midwest. Sometimes it's someone from Indonesia or India. A country with a poor exchange rate against the dollar, let's say. A country where the annual income of this person is significantly less than what an American or a European would make. And they say, would you send me a quadcopter? And I'm like, well, first of all, I mean, just join the giveaway on my Patreon page. Anybody can join. You don't have to be a patron. That's how I do my giveaways. But second of all, if I did give you a quadcopter, what then? Because the very first time you need to replace a motor, that's like 1 month's income. Now what? Now you're boned. So, anyway. Chemtrail Pilot is expanding on the low power issue on the Vistas. Wiring is correct. MSP is on the correct UART and enabled. There is NA for battery voltage in the goggles. Okay, that means that you do not have the MSP connection. So that confirms it. What's the next step? Faulty Vista. Chemtrail, you got 3 quads that are doing this. So it has to be you. It can't be the Vista, right? If you had one quad that was having this problem, be like, oh, maybe your Vista's bad. But you have 3 quads. You don't have 3 bad Vistas. There's something about the way you've set it up that isn't right. Do you have any quads that are working? every time someone says to me the wiring is correct, they're like, hey, my receiver's not working. I can't get movement in the receiver tab. And I've checked the wiring is correct. I'm like, is it? Because, I mean, your receiver's not working. Now the wiring's correct. Well, can you send me a wiring diagram? Can you send me some pictures? You don't need to do that. The wiring is correct. Are you sure it's correct? Maybe it's not correct. Yeah, Michael Scott Rue says, flip your RX and TX wires. Could you have done that backwards? 507RC is asking about this problem. 507RC is asking about this problem. This is, where's Oscar Leung's page? Here we go. Oscar has a great page about this. Let's zoom in there. No OSD. What a great resource this website is. So there's a thing that happens with Vistas where the diode, the protection diode, blows and the OSD stops working. You can confirm this by checking continuity between TX or RX and ground. So put one probe on ground and one probe on TX, and if you have continuity, then the diode is blown. However, what are the chances that you've blown 3 of them? Seems so unlikely. It feels like there's a configuration issue here. Please don't. My wife is watching. Sorry about that. I think back to that sometimes. I do. I remember when I first got into this hobby. I mean, I remember being scared to break props. Because a set of props, oh my gosh. And back then we didn't have the props. Back then props weren't like they are today. They went uphill both ways. Props were a lot more fragile and would break really easily. And every time I went to fly and I would come home and I'd be like, oh my God, I spent $25 in props today. I was like, geesh. Or I had to, upgrade my motors. I wanted to upgrade my motors, and I was struggling to spend $18 on the Sunny Sky motors. $18 each. Like, oh, that's a lot of, that's like $80. That's a lot of money. And I thankfully, I don't have to think that way now because it's a job for me. I mean, there's upsides and downsides of turning your hobby into a job. But one of the upsides is that you think about the money differently. That it's just like, oh, it's a business expense. It's a business expense. It's a business. I mean, you're still spending the money, but, your wife isn't mad at you about it anymore because you're like, hey, honey, it's a business expense. But I definitely remember those days. I remember those days. Max Whalen, has the JB QAVS come out yet? Tomorrow. It comes out tomorrow. Mad Max FPV, why did props explode? They were made of I think it was PC, polycarbonate. They were made of a plastic that was very brittle. I flew HQ 6040s. My first quad was a 6-inch on, I think they were Sunny Sky 2300 kV motors, 2203. 6-inch props on 2203 motors. Does that sound insane? Yeah, that was just what you did. And these props, if you just touched a branch, explode. And then I switched to the King Kong props, and they were more flexible and more durable, and it was just amazing. Ciati, you cannot make a bad chicken not be bad by cooking it too much. Then you just have an overcooked bad chicken. Don't do it, dude. It's not worth it. Ciati, I will super chat you $20 tonight if you don't eat that chicken. Crunked glass nylon is what was super fragile. I don't think the HQ 6040s were glass nylon though, were they? I could be wrong. Maybe they were. Jason Kennedy, what a great question. Any suggestions on how to set up a tiny whoop practice track, example layouts or things to include? Jason, what you want to do is look at other races that people have set up and think about individual elements of the race track that you see. Like, for example, this is not for Tiny Whoops, but I'm going to give you the principle. MultiGP has a ton of tracks that you can look at, including these universal time trial tracks, which are pretty cool. And what you can do is you can just look at each of them and think about the elements of the track. Where's the actual track layout? Sir, I don't want the leaderboard. Where's the actual track layouts? There we go. So we can look at these tracks. Oh, they stopped doing the swooshy thing. That's too bad. Or you can look at races. You can just go look at races and think about the elements of the race. Whenever I try to set up practice for racing, I try and set up individual elements that I struggle with in real races. So right at Rigid FPV says, thank you for $2, Rigid FPV. How can I post on your wall? I'm not sure I know what you're asking. How can you post on my wall? I don't know what you're asking. I'm sorry about that. Francis Bidzogo, thank you for $5 Canadian. I finished a new build with the JHEMCU GHF 13 AIO. CLI displays version no config found. Board manufacturer MTKS. Board name Maytech F411. Did you flash it? The no config found doesn't matter. That just means there's nothing wrong with that. If you flashed it, did you flash it with the wrong target? Is Maytech F411 the correct target for the GHF 13 AIO? That's the first question I would ask. If all you're concerned about is the no config found, that just means you haven't applied the custom defaults yet, I believe. But just plug in the quad and it'll say, do you want to apply custom defaults? So let's go back to that question. I don't feel like I did a good job answering that question because I could be more specific. Let's say I wanted ideas for Tiny Whoop tracks. What I would do is I would just go Tiny Whoop Race. Okay? Now, here's Team Tiny Whoop. Indoor Drone Racing. Alley Cat Coffee Cup Invitational. Okay. So now I'm just going to click on this, and I'm going to look for footage of somebody running the track. And I'm going to think about elements of the track that I might want to emulate. So here we go. Now, obviously, your track isn't going to be in a bar, but that's okay. So here's like a tube. Fine. Can we see somebody run the track? All right, that's all well and good. B-roll, B-roll. Where is some actual flight footage? No. There's a lot of people in this bar. Okay, where's some actual racing, though? Okay, this was the... Oh, here we go. Got it. All right. Here we go. We're going to run a track. Let's look for elements that we could emulate. All right, well, this is just a straight into a tunnel. All right, so we got a tunnel. And it's a tunnel after a long straight. So you got to go fast and then get into a narrow area. We got some gaps here just going through windows. Nothing special about that. We're going to pivot around this plant. So we want to, like a 270 pivot. Gate. This is a left arcing 180 degree turn. Okay. No real elements here, I would say. Just kind of a course. Let's try and find like a course. Mr. Shutterbug going to be whoop racing. A lot of whoop races don't have like elements like a spiral ladder. I mean, sometimes they do. Is this... No. This looks a lot like a race I was at. Let me get to the racing. There we go. All right, here we go. Oh, he's moving too. I'm going to have to slow this down. Hold on. I can't commentate this. It's going too fast. Let's slow Mr. Shutterbug down. He's fast, boy. All right, here we go. Around to the right of a flag. So here, the element looks like a dive gate. Is he going to dive? Dive down and around. And there's a descending to hit this gate. Yep, and that's a lap. So I would just watch other races, just like we're doing now. Look for elements that they've incorporated, and then try and build those yourself. There we go. I feel better about that answer now. Search for Whooptopia. That track looks good. That's a brewery, not a bar, I think. Whooptopia. Here, do one more. Day one. Whooptopia, day one. Is this all racing? Let's pick a pilot and look at their track. Oh yeah, we got a little. Oh, interesting. You can go in one side and come out the top. That's interesting. I don't know what that is. A hurdle? A hurdle. There we go. Come in the top, come out the bottom. They always got these lighted. You can just get little hoops and stuff and make those. Yeah, all right. Steve Beeman, thanks for a $5 super chat. There we go. All right. Yeah, a lot of making a whoop track is just making your environment interesting. A lot of times if you look at like a 5-inch racing track, it's just a big field, and then they put gates up. And the gates define the sort of elements of the track. But whoop racing, usually you just look around and go, where would it be cool to race? And a lot of the tracks are not as element heavy. It's just like you're going straight and through the gates and through the gates and through the gates. Do they fly full acro or some kind of mix? Asks Jamie Patterson. A lot of whoop pilots fly in angle mode. Some whoop pilots fly in a mixed mode where, if I remember correctly, pitch is like acro and roll is like angle. Most pilots fly angle mode, though. Very few fly acro. The reason for that, I think, is that with whoop racing, you're much more likely to... One reason I like to fly whoops in angle mode, so I'll speak for myself. With whoop racing, you're much more likely to hit objects and bounce off them in a very small environment. And angle mode can recover and right the quad much faster than you can. In addition, when whoop racing, you're basically always just going forward. You're not really doing flips and rolls, so you don't need to turn upside down. Edoc points out that T-Dog won Whoop Wars yesterday flying acro. Well, there's always got to be one guy. Let's see here. Angle mode is easier while drinking, says 661FPV. Sam Burns, FPV, says, I'm building an Apex 4-inch for freestyle. Make some motor suggestions. 4-inch freestyle. Now, Ciati's here, so let's see what he comes up with. I know I always go with his recommendation. I think Ciati's been recommending an 1806 motor for 4-inch. I think that for freestyle, 1404 is going to be too small. 1407 is about the smallest. 2004, yeah, good point. My Shocker 4-inch. 2004 motors, very, very good. That's a good point. I mean, I really love the 2004s for freestyle on my Shocker. Siadi, what were you recommending 1806s for? I swear you recommended an 1806 for something. 2004 3500 kV. Yeah. Dave T, 2205 is not terrible for 4-inch. It's just a little heavy. Yeah, 1407 is the smallest I would go for 4-inch, I think. For 4-inch freestyle. And it's really not enough. You really need better. 2004 is a great place to be. Siadi, I swear you recommended I don't remember. I have to go back to my email. He says 1806s would work, but I don't know of any that aren't Kagi, which is a big deal. Don't start nothing there about Kagi motors, Siadi. I swear you recommended a certain 1806 to somebody in email, but I don't remember what the deal was. I think 2004 is better. 2004, the wider motor. Let's just check the size real quick. So 2004 is 10 pi r squared. 10 times 10 times 4 times 3.14 is 1256 for a 2004 motor. 1806 is going to be 9 times 9 times 6 times 3.14. So an 1806 is a significantly bigger motor than a 2004. Oh, you guys can't see any of that. 1256 versus 1526 millimeters cubed. But it doesn't mean it's better. Sometimes those wider motors are really where you want to be. Wild FPV wants to know if I replace bent props or just bend them back and keep flying. I'll bend them back if the motors sound relatively smooth. And if I really care about the footage, then I'll replace them. But I'll bend them back. And what I do is I hold the quad up and I look at the props side to side. And I spin one of them and I just check each of the props is in the same line with the other one. And if one is low or high, I push it up or down to level it out. If the prop actually has missing chunks, then I'll definitely replace it. A-Power says, wide motors have more torque generally. Is that correct? That's really not correct, A-Power. Torque is pretty much a function of the motor volume. The shape of the motor largely affects its ability to cool itself. Chris Rosser has a great video about the size of motors, and I definitely would recommend you check that out. Chris Rosser has a great video about this. Choosing the right prop, how to pick the best motor. Yeah, definitely check this video out if you're interested in learning more about how the size and shape of the motor affects its performance. I'll paste that in the Discord for you and in the chat. Yeah, I always bend the props back if I feel like I can because I'm lazy and I don't want to take the time to swap them. I just want to keep flying. But if the prop is bent to the point where it's making my video look bad or I'm worried I'm going to smoke a motor, then I will go ahead and replace it. Jesse Helms. Ouch, Jesse. What do you do when you're in a slump? I've been trying to repair my Nazgul for 2 weeks. I've gone through 3 flight controllers and I'm really depressed about it. Jesse, if you've blown 3 flight controllers in a row, you gotta like find somebody else who knows how to work on quads and ask them to help you figure out what you're doing wrong. Like, you're making some kind of mistake. There's some kind of fundamental deficit in your knowledge or skill that's resulting in you just wasting your own money. So don't just keep throwing money at the problem unless you have just money to burn. Find a local multi-GP chapter. Find somebody else out there who can sit down with you and work on it. Nothing sucks more than blowing up a flight controller, then you buy a spare and you blow it up. You're like, you're just throwing your money down a hole and you just want to quit the hobby. Bone Thruster says, get a smoke stopper. Geez, smoke stoppers don't protect against all faults. If you're accidentally putting VBAT somewhere where it doesn't need to go, a smoke stopper won't save you from that. But I would say you gotta find somebody else who knows how to build and get them to tell you what you're doing wrong and help straighten you out, and just sit you down and pat you on the back and, you know, buy you a beer or something. Brother Hobby Avenger 2004 3150 kV is a great motor, Sam Burns. It's a great choice. I'm really glad Ciotti straightened me out. I can't believe I didn't immediately say 2004. Like, it's because I haven't flown my Shocker in a little while. I love that thing. And I'm so sold on 2004 as like the best 4-inch freestyle motor. I can't believe I didn't just spit that out. There you go. Wild FPV says, what is the difference between increasing P gain and decreasing D gain? So Wild FPV, what you're talking about there is changing the ratio. What you're talking about there is achieving a certain ratio of P to D. But there's two things, when you talk about P and D gain, there's two things that you need to be thinking about. One is the P to D ratio, right? How high is your P relative to your D? And a given quadcopter will have an optimal PD ratio, which will cause it to be sufficiently damped. And what that means is that when it comes to a stop, it will come like smoothly and sharply to a stop without overshoot and without ringing, right? So once you have the ideal PD ratio, that's what you'll have achieved. But then the other thing is the P and D gain. And of course, you can have a certain ratio, but be raising and lowering the overall gain. As you raise let's say you've got the ideal PD ratio tuned in, and now you're going to try and tune the PD gain. If you have too much P gain, you'll get into what's called an overtuned state, where even though the D term is trying to damp the P term is just so overactive. Excess D gain will cause the motors to get hot. So you don't want to be overtuned. You don't want your P and D to be too high. So how do you find those? That's the big question, though. How do you find the optimal P and D gain? And that's trickier. It involves black box, really. I don't know if you guys can hear. We got some fireworks going off in the background outside. That's what I love about living in the country. No HOAs here. No homeowners associations. No, sir. We'll shoot off fireworks if we want. KZitar777 says, I've been told to run lower rates for racing. Why is that? The lower your rates, the more precise your stick movements can be. Right? Let's say that you can move the stick with a certain precision. Your fingers are capable of moving the stick with a certain precision. The lower the rates, the more precisely you'll be able to control the movement of the quad with those little stick movements and finger movements. And the thing is, why do you need to turn faster than, I don't know, like 500, 600 degrees per second in order to go around a race course? When racing, you want the minimum rates necessary to allow you to control the quad and make the movements. If your rates were too low, you could not turn sharply enough to do that spiral maneuver. But if your rates are so high that you never hit the full extent of stick travel, then you're wasting precision and you're losing precision. So I've started flying the 533 rates from Evan Turner, but I've added like 0.35 expo because, I mean, I tried the 533 rates and I really wanted more center stick softness. I just can't fly as precisely as Evan, shocker, on his rates. But those 533 rates are 533 degrees at full deflection, and that's fast enough rotation to be able to do any of the sharp turns or spirals or even split S's. Just not really good for that snappy freestyle, but who cares? Yeah, there's a video that Vanover and I did about rates. You can hear more about this topic. I'll give you a link to the video. Vanover and I did a video June 2019. Wow, it's a long time ago. Here's the Vanover video with rates. You can hear more about how to set rates and why racers use lower rates. I used to race with my freestyle rates. My freestyle rates used to be around 1100 degrees per second. These days they're closer to 900. And I used to race with my freestyle rates because I thought consistency of stick movement and muscle movement was more important. I don't think that anymore. Lowering my rates down to around 500 to 600 degrees per second means I get it feels like I have so much more precision as I'm going into the moves. And especially little corrections in the middle of a turn, so much easier with lower rates. Cody Carlson wants to know, what are your thoughts on the Vanover 2207 motors? I haven't flown them. I feel he put those out just to be different. What do you mean just to be different? The 2207.5? The thing is, I mean, if you think about how competitive guys like Vanover are, the only reason he would make those because if he makes a crap motor, he has to fly that motor for his whole racing season. Do you think that he would compromise his competitiveness for the sake of having a motor with his name on it? I don't buy it. I don't buy it. I think he made that motor because he wanted that motor for his racing. That's the thing. A lot of times people think that a pilot puts out a signature motor just as a cash grab. And I'm not saying that doesn't happen. But most of the time, especially if the pilot is like a highly competitive racer, the pilot wants a specific type of motor. And in exchange for a manufacturer, it's a pain in the ass. The manufacturer makes prototypes. The pilot flies the prototypes. He doesn't like them. The manufacturer makes more prototypes. Eventually, they settle on one, and then that's the motor the racer runs for his whole season. But generally, the motivation is, please, someone make me a motor. And in exchange for making the motor, they sell the motor with his name on it. I'm not seeing any more super chats come in. I'm going to reload this page real quick just to make sure that I'm not missing super chats. Oh, now they're all gone. Okay, well, I don't think anybody left any more super chats. Let's see here. Does Vanover use the same rates for freestyle and racing? I don't know for sure, but I think no. I think his freestyle rates are around 700 degrees per second. I'm guessing his race rates are lower, but I'm not sure. 700 degrees per second feels high for racing, but it depends on how much expo you've got. And especially a skilled pilot like Vanover can probably handle it. Ori Foxter, thanks for $2. I wasn't missing the super chats. Here you go. Thank you so much, Ori Foxter. Andrew Power, thanks for $5. JTGRC says, what are the stock rates on your F7 flight controller? They're Betaflight stock rates. We originally wanted to put a whole bunch of customized stuff in the JBF7 Target, but the Betaflight devs said that the said that flight controller targets should only contain hardware-specific information, and customizing rates they didn't want that. They suggested that we not do that. Could you showcase your SpeedyBee V2 flight controller build? I cannot showcase that. I'm not sure that I still own that, Coco Taco. Static FPV, thank you for $5. Different length antennas. What length for what applications? Static, I assume you're not asking about the tuning of the antenna, the length of the active element of the antenna, which is going to change depending on the wavelength or frequency that is being tuned to. I guess you could be asking about stubby antennas versus big long antennas. In general, the longer the antenna is, the longer the coaxial cable of the antenna is, the less durable it's going to be, but the better coverage you're going to get. Because moving the antenna out away from the quadcopter or up above your head gives you better coverage. What length for what application? He's talking about VTX antennas. So like on a typical freestyle build, I will use like a Lumineer Axie with a few inches of coaxial cable. For a long range build, you could use a much longer antenna because it's unlikely that you're going to be doing proximity flying and crashing. For a race build like the 533 Switchback, you're going to use a stubby antenna because you care more about durability than range. So Pokio wants to know if I've had a look at the AOS frame from Chris Rosser. Pokio, we looked at that on yesterday's live stream a little bit. I'm not sure that I'm going to dive back into that right now. TNWFPV, thank you for a $2 super chat. Is a 35 amp 4-in-1 ESC good enough for racing on 4S? You know, TNW, if you think about it, just do the math here. 35 times 4 is 140 amps. And that 35 amp rating is probably continuous. So there's probably a burst rating of 150 or 160 amps. When are your motors ever going to pull more than 140 amps for very long, if at all? So there's an argument that a 35 amp ESC is more than most people ever need. But now we've got ESCs out there with 50, 60, 75 amp rating, and they're not intended for gigantic beast class quads pulling 200, 300 amps. They're intended for 5-inch mini quads. They will never pull that many amps. But having those higher amp rated ESCs does give a little bit more headroom where you might be able to push the ESC harder and not have it explode. So most people today would say that 35 amps is not enough for racing, which is interesting because just a few years ago, 20 amps was kind of like standard and 35 amps was like, ooh, look at Mr. Big Shot here. But most people today would want to be on like a 45, 50 or higher amp ESC. Chances are that it'll be fine, and chances are you won't pull 35 amps for very long, if at all, but it'll be more likely to blow up and most people wouldn't do it. Pacific Northwest Pilots, thanks for a $10 super chat. Thanks for the great content, JB. Phil Wolter, thanks for a $5 super chat. I pulled my DJI V2 goggles out last night and they are not connecting to the DJI Assistant to activate the firmware. I tried different USB ports. Any thoughts? The goggles have to be powered on? Maybe you're not powered. You have to power them on or the USB doesn't work. Could that be it? I mean, you say you pulled them out. I'm going to guess they're not brand new. So I'm going to guess you've done this before. Adam Victor says, are you ever going to do your new perfect freestyle build? You mean this? You mean this? Yes. I'm literally recording it today. Because the frame finally came out. Or it will be coming out tomorrow. They are powered on, Phil Walter. New USB cable, new USB port. I mean, are they working? Different USB ports, different USB cable. Brand new. They're brand new, but they don't connect to the PC at all. You need DJI Assistant 2.1 for the V2 goggles. Do you have Assistant V2 or 2.1? Huh. Pacific Northwest Pilot says Static had a super chat question. I feel like there may have been super chats that came in that that I didn't see because my screen wasn't updating. I don't know how to get those back though. Static FPV, I got Static's question. Different length antennas, what length for what application? I did get that super chat, so that wasn't missed. We talked about that. Windows does recognize it as a device. That's good. Yeah, you need version 2.1 for the goggles V2. That could be the problem. Ori Foxer suggests, thank you for $2, Ori Foxer. TrueRC or Lumineer versus Vaz. TrueRC and Vaz both make amazing antennas. Honestly, I don't think there's a winner between them. Like, I'm a big fan of the Vaz Ion antenna. I think it's a really nice antenna. I like the TrueRC X-Air. The Vaz Crosshair is almost the same antenna, also very good. Honestly, they're both so good, I don't think I could pick a winner. So, A-Power says, make sure that the V2 goggle OTG cable is on the goggle side. A-Power, he's plugging into the PC, so I don't think he is using the OTG cable. The video out driver update. Surely the video out driver change doesn't affect the DJI. Surely not, right? Because that would be silly. I don't know if you guys are hearing the fireworks in the background. How much use would you give an antenna before replacing it, says Lazy FPV. The problem is that it can be hard to know when an antenna is broken internally. So you can have an antenna and it's just, you kind of don't notice that it's performing like crap. And then you put a new antenna on, you're like, oh my God, it's amazing. There used to be this thing. Let's see if it still exists. The Owl RC SWR meter. Do they still sell it? It looks like they do. Now this thing costs $110, so it's not like most people are going to just like, oh yeah, give me that. You're not just going to run out and buy it. But this is it's very inexpensive for an SWR meter, for what it's worth. And it's a type of antenna tester, and it can be useful for telling you if an antenna is damaged. Like, SWR is not the be-all, end-all of antenna performance, but if an antenna has really bad SWR, that can be an indicator that it's broken. So, if you want to test antennas, this could be a way to do it. I have one of these, and this is actually how I will test an antenna. But a lot of times an antenna can be beat up and still in fine performance. So, Andrew Power says the goggles won't connect to anything if the OTG adapter is not on the goggle side. I disagree. I'm sorry to say that. I've updated my V2 goggles. If you're plugging them into a PC, you do not need the OTG adapter. You definitely do not need the OTG adapter to plug into PC. The whole point of the OTG adapter is to turn the goggles into the USB host device for the phone. When you're plugging into a computer, the computer has to be the USB host device. I have never used the OTG adapter when plugging into the computer, and I've never had a problem. So respectfully, I disagree. Ciati FPV points out that the Immersion RC RF meter is also a good choice. It is. I would just use this today to verify that Smart Audio was working correctly. Can you still buy this, though? Is it still around? Oh my God, it's in stock. Wow. I kind of wondered if they had just discontinued this. This is a great little tool for measuring the output power of an antenna. Now, here's the thing. Like, I use it to test whether smart audio is working, because I'll change the output power and I'll see that the output power changes in the power meter. It's tricky to use this to A/B an antenna because the positioning of the power meter relative to the antenna is so sensitive to that. But if you've got one antenna that's outputting, 5 milliwatts and one antenna that's outputting like 0.05 milliwatts, yeah, you probably have a problem. That's a great tool. That is well worth having in your pocket. I've used that so much. Adam Victor says the Vista shortage has been going on for way too long. Hey, Adam. Do you remember once upon a time I said, there's about to be a Vista shortage? I'm hearing rumors. If you want Vistas, you better pick them up. I got mine. Yeah, that's just mean. That's just mean. Oh. I got mine. I'm riding it out. My house is going to get broken into tonight, so they're going to steal my Vistas. I ain't giving them away, Debok86. I ain't giving them away. I need them. I've got quadcopters. That were sent to me. Just ran. I didn't agree to review them and then not. They just, sometimes people will send me a quad and they'll be like, hey, check this out, see if you like it. And I've like, yeah, I'm not that interested, but I keep them because they have a Vista in them. I'm not responsible for the shortage. Hell no. No. I hoarded. I guess I hoarded a little bit. I need them for work. You got to understand. I need them for work. That's literally all I have, for the record. Hectectica, thank you for a $5 super chat. Yes, it's a business expense. That's right, Eric Toft. T-Motor F80 Pro. Hectectica asks, T-Motor F80 Pro 1900 kV for Banggood? Too much? I think the F80 is a lot. What's the actual size of an F80? What's this? A 2408. I used to run 2407s. 2407 and 2208 are similar in size, and that's a pretty good size for 5-inch. 2408 is not it's not like forget about it big. It's 42 grams. That's a big motor. I don't think it's too much, but it's definitely, some people would say it's too much. You got to know why. You got to know why you want that motor. You're going to pair that with a particular prop. It's a lot. It's a big motor. It's more than I think I would want. 2407, 2208, that's about as big as I feel like 5-inch needs to be. What's the frickin' FPV cycle motor? Is that 2506? I'm saying that. Is the FPV cycle motor 2506? I think it is. 2408. 24... Here, do it with me. 24 squared... no, sorry. 12 squared times 8 times 3.14. That's a 2408. 2506 is going to be 12.5 squared times 6 times 3.14. No, see that? There you go. Okay, thank God. The Kebab FPV cycle motor is significantly smaller than a 2408. People think it's a big giant motor, but it actually really isn't as big. 2408, great motor. That F80, great motor for 6-inch, great motor for 7-inch. It's a bit much for 5-inch, I think. You gotta have a good reason for doing that for 5-inch. That's what I would say. Michael Hill, thank you for a $5 super chat. Are your JB motors going to be out of stock for a while? If by for a while you mean forever, we're not making them anymore. I've talked on the live stream about the various reasons I decided to stop making them. Yeah, they are discontinued. I gotta get coasters for my new desk. I'm leaving drink rings all over my desk. It's not acceptable. What would my grandmother say? Okay. Yeah, so the JB motor is no longer being made. What kV am I going to use with the FPV cycle motors? The lower kV, not the 2000. Ciotti would say to use the 2000 kV on 6S with a throttle curve, but that's not my jam. 5 minutes left till the end of the stream. Ciotti's going to be streaming tonight, I assume, if his bad chicken hasn't killed him. Ciotti, go ahead and start posting that link. Phil Walter, thank you for a $5 super chat. You get $5 for pointing me in the right direction. I visited Flight Test today. They told me to listen to Bardwell. I will continue after this. Well, I'm glad Flight Test is recommending me. Thank you, Flight Test. Alrighty. We are coming to the end of the stream. Just 4 or 5 minutes left. What's your fastest 3 tracks on the global qualifier track, sim or real life? Joe Minty. Joe, I kind of don't want to answer because I feel like I wasn't at my best that day. I'm going to make, I'm going to act like a racer because I know I'm going to make a bunch of excuses for my times. I think I was around 24 seconds. I can't remember if that is like an actual time. It's what I vaguely remember. No one's reporting times yet. I think I was around 24 seconds was my fastest times. I don't know about my fastest 3. No, 24 seconds a lap. 72 seconds. 72 seconds for 3 laps. I was running approximately 24-second laps. No. Not 24 seconds for 3 laps. I'm not that fast. What is a good 14 millimeter camera? Is that micro, Mr. Stubbs? No, micro is 19, isn't it? What's a good 14? What's a good, I guess that's nano size. What's a good nano size camera? Evan Turner likes the Runcam Racer 2. That's what I'm running on the 533 quads. Michael Hill, thank you for a $10 super chat. $507RC, you are correct. Support for ProShot has been removed from Betaflight. Yeah, I'm hoping to go back out to House Mountain and try again with these 533 quads and with a little more practice under my belt. Ciotti says he settled on the Predator V5 as the best nano cam, for what it's worth. Ciotti likes the Predator V5. Evan Turner runs the Runcam Racer 2, and that's what I run on the 533 builds just because that's what he runs. But I don't actually think it's a very good... I don't love it. It's not... I would go with the Predator V5 like Ciotti says. 2 minutes to the end of the stream. Ciotti's going to start posting the link to his stream. He's going to start streaming at 10 when I knock off. Edoc says Predator V5 is what most racers are using too. Aha. And why does Evan Turner run the Runcam Racer Nano? Runcam Racer Nanos have wide dynamic range, says License to Drive. Evenings and winter light, you can still see the ground okay. Crunk likes the Toothless too. Ori Foxer says, I heard Betaflight doesn't utilize the H7 with no plans to use it. Is this true? I don't know what that means, Ori Foxer. There's plenty of H7 processors out there with Betaflight support. Betaflight isn't doing anything specific with the H7 processor that you couldn't do with an F7, but that's probably largely for compatibility reasons. They just, I would guess. Betaflight totally supports H7 processors, though. Heart of America says Evan is on Fox Ear these days, I'm pretty sure. I thought that's... What? Shut up. I bought the camera I don't like because I thought he used it. And I was just like, if I'm going to build Evan's quad, I'm going to build Evan's quad. Where's cameras? Cameras. What's he selling? Ah, shoot. Shop. Where's search? Search. Hey. How do I search? How do I search your store? Hey. Where's your search box? We'll never know. More. No. Hey. Why can't I search your store, Evan? Give me a break, dude. Just click that box in WordPress. Enable search. Oh, well. Alrighty. Is it worth future-proofing with an H7 right now? I don't think so. F7 is fine. I wouldn't worry about it. Click on more. I did click on more. No search. No search. Filter? Where do you see filter? Nope. Where do you see filter? I don't see filter. I don't even know if he sells the freaking camera. No. All right, anyway. All right. That's it, folks. We're done. We're done for the day. I'll see you tomorrow at 6 p.m. for the news with JB and It's Blunty. But for now, that's going to do it. Siati, have a great stream. Thank you guys for coming out. Thanks to everybody who left questions. Thanks to everybody who donated. And thanks to the patrons in the Discord, of course, for supporting me and making it possible for me to do what I do. That's going to do it. Happy flying, everybody. Tiny Trainer Kit, license to the Runcam Racer Nano. Thank you, License to Drive. That could be out of date, though. See you guys.